You are listening to the Showbiz Side Hustle podcast, powered by Performerpreneur. I am your host here, Nicole Louise Geddes, and together we'll be delving into all of the ways that a showbiz side hustle can support you now and long into the future. So sit back, relax, and listen in, and together let's get inspired to take action to create the life, future, and business of your dreams. This episode is sponsored by the Showbiz Side Hustle Handbook, available on Kindle and in paperback over on Amazon. Follow the simple tasks laid out over 3 easy-to-action sections and effectively build a strong business foundation for a successful showbiz side hustle. Hello and welcome. It is the final episode of Series 1 of the Showbiz Side Hustle podcast. And so with a tear in my eye and a little bit of relief, I can't lie, I've invited Tom, the podcast producer, my podcast producer, the best podcast producer in the land, to come and talk to us about the process, the highs, the lows, the conversations, the technical element of his role. And I think you'll find that he'll ask me a few questions back. So it's going to be interviewed from both angles today so that you, the listener, can get a really good insight into everything that we have been doing behind the scenes, how effective the podcast has been for me and my business. And also, if you're interested in creating your own visibility and consistency with Tom as your wingman, then you'll find out how to do that too. So first and foremost, I'd like to say a huge thank you and welcome to Tom for being my absolute rock in this process of 52, Tom, 52 episodes, a whole year of weekly episodes of the Showbiz Side Hustle podcast. So thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It always feels a little bit strange to be on the kind of the sort of front of house side of things with the podcast. But I'd like to say a big thank you to you because we've been working together for a year and it has been a very enjoyable year. The podcast has been a real pleasure to work on, actually. It's that combination of your your personality, your sort of spark in front of the camera, and those guests that you're getting on have been really, really good. And sort of, I listen to every single episode twice before it goes out, and it's a great listen. So I urge as many people to listen to it as possible. What do I do? Well, I've been in the world of video production for 25, almost 25 years actually this year. And a couple of years ago, I started working with a client, a long-term sort of video client who wanted to do a podcast. I've always really enjoyed podcasts as a format, as a medium. I've been a podcast listener for years. There are some podcasts I've been listening to since like 2008, 2009, that kind of time. So it's a format which has been with us for a long time. I mean, essentially it's a radio show in its most simple form that has sort of become a TV talk show, if you will, and it's a format I've always enjoyed. So when we started working with Liz Allen on her podcast Electric Evolution a few years ago, she we sort of came up with a process, and I got to the end of the first year of doing that with Liz and thought, God, I really enjoy this, really enjoy it. So slowly but surely we've ramped down the sort of traditional video side of the business and ramped up the podcast side of the business to the point now where I do almost no sort of traditional video work at all, and it's all podcasts. And we've got a really interesting sort of group of business owners who are podcasting. So we range from Showbiz Side Hustle podcast, which is sort of has a really kind of quite a specific targeted demographic and niche, which is sort of entrepreneurial. It's about education. It's about support. It's kind of really well, really clearly defined, through to something like one of the sort of more outlier podcasts, which is called Shell's Spooky Stories, which is a weekly kind of ghost stories and sort of paranormal podcast. So we've got everything in between as well. So I feel very lucky that I've got a really diverse mix of people that I work with. And I developed Podforge, so podforge.co.uk, to sort of attempt to address some of the issues that I felt were kind of, one, being felt by business owners who wanted to start a podcast, but also some of the other things that people who were running businesses were feeling, which was, okay, consistency around content creation, content repurposing. So taking a piece of a large, in this case, a long form conversation and turning it into lots of other pieces of content. And really kind of helping people use podcasts as a sort of a heart to do a whole bunch of other content marketing stuff. Now, alongside that, we've had the growth in AI, and I've been a really keen advocate of using AI in ways that sort of support business owners rather than sort of replace their voice. And it's been an absolutely key part of the process of the repurposing back end stuff. So we built out all sorts of systems to support entrepreneurs. But podcasting has become the thing that I love the most to work on.
And do you know what, Tom? I'm your ideal client and you're mine, because you are in creative industries, you are a creative, and you have evolved, you've pivoted,
Yes.
you've followed the joy, you've made room for new things, you're a new version of you and your business. And that is what I am saying week in, week out on the podcast. What is the next spotlight for you? And you've done that, and you've just explained that process. It was one thing, and when it didn't do and serve you in the way that it used to, you've pushed through, you've evolved, and you've found the next big thing for you. And it is huge, and it is bringing me so much joy to see so much joy in you and the process. And it's so simple, and you are so in tune with it all. And then I'm your ideal client because I had no clue. I knew that I had a superpower when it came to talking. I knew that it was a way that I could tell my story, that I could share my business, that I could spread the message. And I knew that a podcast would be a perfect thing to do that with. But how to start it, how to use it, how to be successful in it was not anything that I understood or had the time to get into. So don't get me wrong, I could have learned it. Of course I could. I've learned many aspects of my business, but when somebody like you pops up and shows the light and says, this is what I do and I do it brilliantly and it's easy for me and it brings me joy, hey ho, sign me right up. And so that's what I did. I jumped straight in and let Tom take the lead on this podcast. I had the ideas, I've got the voice, and I am absolutely consistent when it comes to shouting about my message and sharing my ideas with the few people. Many people will get onto the stats, Tom, that are listening. I don't really understand or know, so it'll be interesting. But it's all thanks to you and you evolving. So becoming that next version of you has helped me become the next version of me. I love the synergy there.
Yeah, and I really couldn't agree more. This is I think it's worth saying right from the start, podcasting is not an easy journey, because even when you're working with somebody to help you along the way, which makes it a lot easier, because I think there's a truth at the heart of what podcasting is and what it does that a lot of people sort of forget or don't necessarily want to sort of properly sort of get their head around it. And the truth is, the slightly unpalatable truth is that it is a long game. You've reached year one, and that's great. You have created 52 episodes of a weekly podcast that has gone out every Wednesday. Yeah, every Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. It's like every Wednesday on YouTube and across all the podcast platforms every week with a different topic. Now, sometimes we've been like weeks ahead, and other times you've kind of been, you and I have been sort of working to deadlines, and that's in all honesty, that's the nature of this thing. Sometimes, your sort of the ebb and flow of your energy sort of sometimes means that's just the way it goes. But you've done it. You've done 52 episodes. Most podcasts, and this is the interesting stuff. Most podcasts, there's like 4.3 million podcasts out there, and a lot of people say to me, "Hang on, is the podcast market not oversaturated?" And my answer to that is, well, no. I mean, just simply put, it absolutely isn't. So the the the, the 4.3 million number doesn't tell the whole story by a long stretch. So first of all, of those 4.3 million podcasts, the vast proportion of them have never got past episode 3. So people will start a podcast and go, I'm doing a podcast. And they get in and they go, I've done 3 episodes, and then, the kids got sick, or I got bored and wandered off, or somebody else went shiny, 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 and you went chasing that particular, to mix my metaphors, shiny squirrel, and the podcast drops off. So the sort of the majority of those, I think it's 67% of that 4.3 million are like 3 episodes where people have gone, not for me. So there's another barrier, which is between episode 4 and I think it's 21. And the amount of people who get past episode 21, it's only 3% of people who get past episode 21, or something crazy like that. It's like single digit number. It sort of fluctuates up and down year on year, but it's small. I think it might have been 6% last year, but overall, as an aggregated thing, I think it's in that sort of sub 5%. So we've already taken 4.3 million down to 43, sort of about 20 odd thousand or whatever it is. Maths is not my strong suit, just to be very clear. And once you get into that sort of rarefied club of active podcasts that are keeping sort of regular, keeping consistent, then you take another look and go, well, okay, of all of those podcasts that are left, so let's call it, for the sake of argument, call it sort of 40,000 podcasts, 40,000 active podcasts worldwide. They're not all going to be, by any stretch of the imagination, on one topic. So if you are a business podcast aimed at people who are, as you do, sort of in that kind of that sort of space where they're in the performing arts or in the creative industries, who are looking to build another business to either sort of support their career, or something with an eye to exit at some point. That's a niche, of those 43, all those 40,000 podcasts. It's your competition becomes very small. So you're not a true crime podcast. You're not a politics podcast. Those are all in their own brackets. So you then niche down again. So you're in marketing and business and entrepreneurship. So, but then you're also in the sliver of that gets even smaller. So you don't need huge amounts of listening figures to connect with the people. What you need is quality of listens. So if you are a broad, I suppose the Spooky Stories is a really good example. Shell's Spooky Stories is a general audience. If you are sort of interested in the paranormal or the uncanny, or just like a spooky story, then that is a broad appeal thing. So Michelle's competition is much greater, but her audience is much wider. Your competition is much smaller, but your audience is probably smaller, but the engagement will be deep. The people who find your podcast will be people who keep coming back, and the value of consistency at that point becomes king. And you have been fantastic at being consistent. And I'd like to ask you, that consistency, what did that feel like? Because I suspect that was maybe one of the parts that some days felt like a bit of a grind.
Exactly that. I can appreciate those people that drop off at 3 episodes. I can appreciate the people that drop off at 21 episodes, and having somebody like yourself for accountability really does help. And, that's exactly another message that I'm spouting all the time about building businesses, about doing anything. Doing it on your own, Tom, is difficult. Building a business, transitioning, performing, creating a podcast. when you get down to it and do it on your own, it all feels very lovely and fun until it's not. So having a human in your corner, I know you spoke about AI, but having a human in your corner that just really feels the emotion of that kind of demotivation, or is there celebrating you when you are motivated, really does keep you going. So you have kept me going. I'm a little bit stubborn in the sense of like, if I've got some targets, if I've got some goals, I will get there. So I do believe I would have kept going, but would I have enjoyed the process as much? Absolutely not. Having you kind of there to support me. And some days I did drop a podcast in your inbox at the very last minute. Now, if I was doing all the tech side of that on my own, there's just no way, because the fact of the matter is, if that podcast got recorded at the 12th hour, that's because I only had the 12th hour left.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There wasn't enough hours left for me to then go and do all of the tech stuff and the loading. And like you've said, we've always been on YouTube as well as the podcast platforms. So it just would have been impossible. It would have been a messy version of what it is today, which is very cleverly, clearly created, sustained, and a joint effort. Like my success is thanks to you. So it is a joint effort. But yes, in answer to your question, it's been a ride, but one that I've absolutely loved thanks to your support.
But I think that's I think we were talking. So I've just taken you through over the last week. Actually, I've taken you through a new sort of part of the new onboarding process that we go through. And actually part of those discussions, we got to talking about your sort of community and this sense that actually, as people in the sort of creative industries and performing arts, we know what an ensemble or crew-based working experience feels like. And I think that's a really useful way to think about any of these, to be frank, any business function. It is incredibly hard work running a business completely on your own. And one of the first things I try to do with any function in the business is, once it gets to a point where I find myself going, oh my God, I haven't got the hours in the day to do this, or I want to do this, or you look at it, you go, first of all, the question is, do I need to do this? And if the answer is no, then get rid of it. Second thing is like, okay, yes, I want to do it. Do I have the capacity to do it myself? And if you can answer honestly, no, but I want to do it, then you've got to find somebody else who can be your crew member to do that. So, to help with that delivery process. And that is, I think, just very true of what we're talking about here, but I think just true across all business functions. Also, it's the stuff you're interested in, because actually your talent is this. It's having the conversations, it's pulling the ideas out of people, it's having honest and engaging chats with people. I'm sure you could not give a damn about how, I mean this in the nicest possible way, how that conversation you had, you don't need to see how the sausage is made. You just want to have the sort of the podcast turning up on that, so you can focus on the stuff that matters in your business, the stuff that matters in your life, and getting the benefits of it. So I think,
Tom, with that point in mind,
yes.
Because you're very right. I just do the bit that I enjoy. I do the bit that I do. So with that in mind, I've got no clue of the stats. I know that you send me stat reports. I know that you say, keep going, it's doing really well. And I'm like, okay, that's enough for me. That's all I need to hear. And obviously I know that people have listened when they reach out, but it's not often. Let's be honest, the world is busy. People listen in the gym, on a walk, in the car, who knows? They don't necessarily have the capacity or the time to reach out and say, I've listened, or, that was great. People do, and that just does keep me going. So listeners, please do let me know if you've listened or loved any of the episodes so far, because it does give you a bit of a boost. But what do the stats look like inside, Tom, in terms of, we've got to 52, you're saying that I'm niche and it's consistent. Does it look that way for the number of people listening? What are we looking at? What are we thinking?
So 52 episodes. what we see is we're averaging a couple of hundred listens an episode on the audio, the audio only. The video side of things is really interesting as well. So the way YouTube is at the moment, we've got a funny situation with YouTube where it's pushing shorts really hard. So looking at the short content, some of your shorts are getting into thousands of views, but they're averaging around about sort of 500 views on your shorts, and your sort of episode listens are in the hundreds, the full episodes. But really interestingly, when people are watching the episodes on YouTube, there's an engagement figure which tells you how long people watch any given piece of content on YouTube. So what's interesting is that whilst your viewer numbers are, I suppose, in the great scheme of YouTube, people might go, gosh, that sounds quite low. For a niche podcast, people are listening to almost all of the episodes. So when people engage, they listen through. And that's really, really important, because that tells me the audience you've got and the audience you're finding is loving the content. On something that people don't like, and this is, on YouTube, it's much easier to see these stats. You will go in and you will see the sort of the bar of engagement. Sort of says like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and if something that people don't like, it just goes off, and so you see where viewers drop off. What we're seeing is all the way through 80-90% on average views. So people are getting through the episodes. Now that goes for the long episodes as well as the short episodes. And in fact, the engagement of the long conversations is sometimes better than the shorts, which when I first saw, I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But I think it's down to what people want. So people, I think, on the shorter episodes come in, and you're very, very good at delivering the sort of the meat up front and say, this is what we're talking about. Here's something actionable that you can think about, and then you can you expand on that. So it might be that with the shorter episodes, people are coming and going, oh, that was brilliant, I've got something really useful from that, and off they go. Now what I hope they're doing is clicking through onto another episode, and that's the sort of the really interesting part of this. So we've got the beautiful thing of having both the audio and the video is that you're getting lots of different ways into your audience. So with podcasts, so through the audio podcasts, you are looking to have people we want people to find you organically. Now, what I've noticed is that Spotify is fast becoming the platform of preference for people. So your Spotify number, let's just have a quick look and see. Okay, well, so this completely blows what I was about to say out the water. 57% of all your listens are on Apple. 24% of all your listens are on Spotify. So what I was going to say is that Spotify is likely to be your highest listening space, but I don't know. What does that tell us? What does the Apple thing? Does it tell us maybe that people in the creative industries, the arts industries, are more likely to be Apple users? Possibly does. Maybe it does. So there's some interesting things to tease out there. But my prediction is that Spotify will, over the next year, become your biggest platform, because Spotify is putting a lot of effort and energy into helping the process of people finding your podcast be easier. So we can now start to upload video content to Spotify, and the way people can discover content on Spotify is changing and becoming a lot easier. So as your podcast performs more and more as the numbers go up and up, Spotify will be pushing your content in front of people that it thinks are going to be a good fit. Now, my Spotify algorithm is completely shot because the kids use it as well, so it literally has no idea what I'm interested in. But if you are a solo Spotify user and don't have other family members all sharing the same account, there's probably better hope for you. But the sort of behind the scenes mechanisms for helping us as the producers and the content creators, helping us find the audience, has got a lot easier. So what I think we've it's worth going back to this idea. Podcasting is the absolute definition of long game content marketing. Stephen Bartlett, I think, so the most popular business podcast in the world is Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. They get millions of listens every month. I think they've got 13.5 million followers or subscribers on YouTube. It's generating $20 million for him a year as a podcast. We're not quite there yet. I haven't been holding back on you. But what's really interesting is that he was I sort of read something that he said about the podcast. He'd been doing the podcast for like 3 years before it really hit the big time. And that's him as a sort of a public, a public figure in the business space. But there was a sort of an inflection point for him where all of a sudden other people found, people outside of his audience found that. And obviously he will have put a lot of ad spend into that. So there'll have been a lot of other inputs to get it to that level. But it is that truth that podcasting rewards people who keep going. Because unlike, say, Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, it is that idea of feed-based information versus library information. A podcast is like a library. You can go into somebody's podcasting platforms or YouTube channel, and if you've gone there because you found one episode and enjoyed it, it's very easy to go back and go, oh, there's a whole suite of stuff. And when people find a podcast they like, and I do it myself, you will listen back through all of it. And then you get to the first episodes and go, wow, the first episodes were rough. But actually, having said that, your first episodes weren't rough at all, because that's because you've got a performer's heart, I think.
I would beg to differ, but I mean, I think there's been some bloopers in the middle as well, to be fair. But it's been a joy. For those watching on YouTube, or if you're intrigued, go have a little look, because my face, Tom, this is said with pure love.
Yes.
I literally glazed over. I'm like, we're talking numbers, we're talking stats. Like, it goes over my head, which is another reason why I'm so self-aware, which we have to be, again, as business owners, as humans, as parents, as people. Try and really tap into and be self-aware, like what is gonna, put a block in the way. And those stats, those, tech bits, they were always going to be my biggest block. And I'm listening and I'm glazing over. I'm trying really hard. I picked out a few things there that I think, this is another reason why, if anyone's listening and wants to explore podcasting with Tom, is another reason that I'd absolutely say go for it, and please do reach out to him, because about this stuff, you're looking, you're researching, it interests you, where to go on Spotify, what's happening next with the video uploading facility on there and how that's going to impact. You're already doing the shorts. And what people don't realize, and that I'm going to let them into, is your AI magic brain has also, so let's put it this way. Some people might be thinking, those stats, they either go over somebody's head, or they're listening and they're not impressive, or they're impressing them. I don't know. That's all an individual kind of view on that. So why have I continued to carry on? And there's a few reasons, and you've touched on them there. I've continued this process, one, because I find the talking process really easy to get my message across. So it's like, right, let's tap into my superpower and do my business and market my business in the easiest possible way for me, with your support. The second is that fact that it's going to be there forever. People can find it. If I decide tomorrow that is it, there's still an avenue for people to hear about me, to continue, to reach out, to find a way to work with me. It's going to be there forever, which I love as well. And the third bit of that puzzle is this AI specific bit, where I'm speaking, I'm using my superpower, I'm talking to fantastic people, and you are able to take that information and help me to generate so many new ideas for where the business is going to go. And I'm going to give everyone a sneak peek of something that's launching in September, which is called the Performerpreneur Steps. And it's going to be about dancing through life and dancing through business. And all of these 52 episodes, listeners, have been played with in Tom's whiz of a brain to pull out my exact words, my exact teachings, so I don't have to revisit these thoughts again. They're already out there, they're already logged, they're already set in stone. And we are together going to create these steps, strategy, I can't even remember, technology. These are tips, strategy, technology, entrepreneurship, performer steps, and success steps, I think.
Yes.
We're going to have all of those coming at you. And I don't have to revisit these topics again and again and again. We've got them absolutely set. They're there. They're what's the word? Cemented.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about the beautiful thing about a podcast is that it's so easy to put this thing out and go, that's brilliant, the episode's out, and even if that's all you did, that would still be great. That'd be brilliant. The truth is that what you've got is every episode is not only a great piece of content, it is an absolute storehouse of experience and knowledge and potential content. So with every episode, we sort of we've built this kind of beautiful machine on the back end that sort of, if you are of a certain age and remember the children's animation Bertha, there is a sort of a machine that feels like a little bit Bertha-esque. It just sort of, you feed things in one end, and at the other end pops all the stuff you need. So it's like, the episode goes in one end. We get the shorts out of it. We get your written content. We get your sort of transcripts. All these things that you want from an episode. But that is sort of one part of the process. And as you say, you've got these transcripts of all these episodes, 52 episodes. So we've got hours and hours and hours of transcripts. That is then usable for a variety of things, including as a storehouse of knowledge for turning into products. We can turn, it's going to be, we could turn every single episode that you did as a solo episode into a worksheet or a lead magnet, like that. We could take every single conversation you had with a client and turn it into a sort of, I guess, a written testimonial, or sort of telling those client success stories becomes a part of that as well. So you have to, one of the things that I like to try and help people do is see this process not just as a content creation process. It is a business development process as well.
And you are helping me with that bit of business development that has been a sticking point for me for so many years, the systems, the processes, and the tech. So again, thank you for that. If you're listening, listeners, and you're thinking, okay, I want to ride this wave with Nicole and Performerpreneur because it's going places. I'm coming back to the UK about as this actual pod drops, I think, around that date. And I'm coming back with some serious energy. Like we are to the next level. I've had the time of my life in Oman. Oh, let's say that, we've produced the whole podcast from different continents together. And different time zones. So again, another hurdle that we overcome. But I'm coming back to the UK with some big energy to move Performerpreneur forward. And that's because now I feel really able, to do that with the tech and the systems and the support that you are showing me. And I'm learning as we're going. I mean, I'm even using spreadsheets now, Tom.
Oh my God, careful, steady on.
I'm not I'm not as silly as I look. So if you're thinking, listeners, okay, this is sounding good, you've got a few options. Obviously, I want you to come and join Performerpreneur and become part of the community, become part of the ripple effect. But if you're thinking that you have a business that aligns with my business and you want to sponsor any of the forthcoming episodes, then I'm open to that as well. Come on in. I'm about collaboration, Tom. I cannot do it all alone, as this episode has clearly shown. But I'm open to working alongside, working with, offering their expertise over mine if that's where it comes to. And I'd love people listening to know that that's absolutely a fundamental part of Performerpreneur. And if you want to be a sponsor of the next series of the Showbiz Side Hustle podcast, which we'll talk about next, then you're more than welcome as well. And Tom, again, supports me to bring that to life with you and your opening ads.
Well, I think it's probably worth adding one more thing. So as a listener, I class myself as a listener to the podcast because I listen to it multiple times each week. About a year ago, you did an episode about, I can't remember what it was about. It was quite early on in the process, but it basically prompted me to set up a little side hustle of my own. And this really is a little side hustle. It just sort of sits in the background, and it's generating me an extra £300 or £400 a month. And that has been a real pleasure. And I wouldn't have done that actually without sitting and listening to you and thinking, I should take this little. And it is absolutely the definition of a side hustle. It sort of sits very quietly. All I have to do is put a couple of things in the post every other day, and it's easy peasy. So without your sort of without your kind of inspiration, that little bit of that sort of extra bit of cash, which is would have amounted to like £4,000 over the course, an extra £4,000 over the course of the year, which is like that's a decent holiday, isn't it? That's exactly.
We've all got those little side hustles in us. Yes. And I think I remember the episode. I think I remember you saying to me, it was one about like following the joy, what can make you money that you enjoy doing. And I know that your side hustle is specifically that. It's very niche. Yeah. It's very you.
Oh, super niche. It's basically it's like selling game stuff. Yeah. It's like,
and so I think it was that episode, and you're like, and so there's 100 things that we've all got, and we don't want to be building businesses that are dragging us down and hard work. I mean, the money, for the first thing you think you want is money, but actually there's nothing harder than making money when it's hard.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Finding little ways
that's the truth. Yeah.
Bring in other income streams using those really niched elements of yourself and your personality is perfect. So thank you. I'm glad. I remember you saying it. It really does. And I should think there's more people than even tell me that this is happening to, because I'm seeing it and people are reaching out and saying, and I don't even mind if I never know who, what, why, or when. To me, it's about just opening people's eyes to opportunities. Yeah. Just taking away that struggle that sometimes the performing industry, it weighs heavy. I just love that people are changing, that the message of Performerpreneur is creating ripples through an industry that for too long has been set in its ways, that there's only one way to succeed, there's only one way to win. And if you don't follow that path, if you don't go to those colleges, if you don't end up in the West End, then you've failed or, you've not achieved. And it's absolutely not true. And the people that I've brought in week on week have shown all of the different diverse directions, and they're all doing super well and feel empowered and successful. Okay. And I don't want to toot my own trumpet, but I think that you and I
toot away
and consistently saying the same thing week in, week out has really helped change some mindsets. And I think it's important because life's a long time, and we can't be sat in one box forever feeling miserable. Follow the joy, find the next thing, evolve, do it, come and join us. And the second series, Tom, speaks about this even more in depth.
Very exciting.
A year to the date, 52 episodes later, we're changing it up. Next episode you hear will be the Spotlight series. So it's all going to still remain under the Showbiz Side Hustle podcast. Series 2 is the Spotlight series, and it's talking to the 14 co-authors of my beloved collaboration book, Performerpreneur collaboration book, Spotlight on Success. I won't say too much today because that is the next episode. The book launches very soon on Amazon. I've brought 14 people, myself included, together to shine a light on the successes that happen off of the stage, the other side of the stage door, in the future that you never even planned or dreamed of. And I'm so excited because those conversations are already so fierce, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this is really interesting. This is an evolution of the, I guess, the heart of what your podcast is about, and it's the sort of, in some ways, it's a perfect foil to all the episodes that have come before it. These are people who have walked the walk. They've done it, and they've lived it, and they're sharing that story. So I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing that as a complete sort of set of conversations, and I think those will be a really good sort of foil to the book itself, and also to everything that's come before and is coming after. So yeah, I'm really excited to be working on on those as well. So and I love the fact that this is into year 2, which is bonkers. Fabulous.
Can you put up with me for another year, Tom?
Yeah, oh God, absolutely.
Because, listeners, what you will not even realise, I mean, people that know me well will, I already know what the 3rd series is. We already know when it's starting. We already know what it's going to be about. And so, again, I'm happy to drop this. Like January 2026, Series 3 will start, and we're going to be taking you specifically on how to start that business, the start-up steps to a showbiz side hustle, and the success. So the exact steps that you're going to need to take week in, week out, little snippets of. So yeah, we're on a roll, and you're not getting rid of me that easily. We're here for the long run. And it's been a pleasure. Please, people,
Likewise.
If you need podcast expertise, then reach out to me and I'll pass you on to Tom.
Yes.
Obviously, find Tom down below in the show notes, and tell him that you heard the episode and that you would love to work with him. And via Performerpreneur, he understands me and the industry, so I know that he'll be a perfect fit for you if you're from our industry too, because you can't not get to know someone really well over a course of a year working.
Well, you've put up with me as well, and I think that's a really important part of the process. It's you've got to be able. It's because it is a collaborative process. I think it's one of those things where there are some services that are done for you and some services that are done with you, and there are elements where I just poodle off and do stuff for you, but actually the heart of it is it's a co-production.
Brilliant. And I feel that. I absolutely feel it. And I think that's the beauty of you and I, both individually and together. Collaboration is the key. I'm going to end it there, Tom, and hope that you get a ripple of people in your inbox that want to work with you. Although I do believe you probably haven't got, have you got a lot of capacity? Like, is there an urgency?
Yeah, so we are. So the way the year's gone, we're just about to go into another sort of growth phase onboarding. So we used the first 3 months to have a big push for growth. We've used the second quarter of the year to get everybody up and running and get a whole bunch of systems in place. We're just about to onboard some new team members for editing and post-production capacity, at which point we are then on the road to sort of significant growth. So we are sort of, I feel like, 3 years into the Podforge experiment, I feel like it's no longer an experiment. It is a completely tried and tested bomb-proof system. And I like a system, and I like something that effectively would if I fell down a manhole, a drain next month and was washed out to sea and never seen again, the whole thing would just keep operating without me, which is the dream. And that is where we've got to. And I really like the fact that I've been able to have the time and space to sort of battle test this process. So yeah, lots of capacity.
to have been part of that original cohort.
Yeah, you were an early adopter.
Yeah, early adopter. Well, and exactly. And sometimes you can just see an opportunity that is too good to miss when you know somebody and all of their skills and creativity. Those of you that are listening and watching on YouTube, you can see, the energy that we have, the energy we bring to the table, and the wonderful human that Tom is. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm so proud and so thankful and so grateful, and we'll see what Series 2 brings.
Thank you so much for having me along.
Take care, Tom. Speak tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining me here on the Showbiz Side Hustle podcast. So until next time, please do take a little bit of action, that very first step, and make sure that you are doing something for you and your Showbiz Side Hustle this week to move you forward and get you heading quickly and swiftly and strategically towards success.